Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. All in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, on what is a smashing Sunday for another daily cryptocurrency market update. If you're new around here, every single day at 1 p.m. UK time, we release a market update where we don't just cover the cryptocurrency markets, but we cover pretty much as possible at large and try and sort of correlate it together to help us work out where we're going in this small but very significant and to become infinitely more significant space. You know, we are so optimistic on the future of blockchain, of the future of many of the cryptocurrencies within this space, that it's hard to be sort of pessimistic at times. And I think there's a real lack currently of interest in the crypto space. Of course, we are interested in it. But generally, retail isn't that interested, and certainly even institutions aren't that interested in buying and bidding up the price of Bitcoin and crypto right now. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have plans for it. We see ETFs, and we're going to be looking at a really interesting move from Valkyrie, who are essentially looking to convert their BTF into a Bitcoin plus Ethereum ETF on the 3rd of October. They're trying to jump the queue of the other 13 applicants for an ETF with potentially moving it to a Bitcoin and Ethereum futures ETF instead of a spot one to try and kind of capitalize on a little bit of gain there. But I think one of the interesting things from here is Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Bitcoin is totally the rage. We did a video yesterday, which is well worth a look at, where we looked at the largest companies, the largest crypto companies in the world. And you'll find that the largest institutions in the world are the majority shareholders in those companies. Very interesting given the kind of polarized space and how people are worried about, impending doom and the end of crypto and all this stuff. Quite reassuring, certainly for somebody who's long spot and been long spot since the start of the year. But there is a hell of a lot going on. To sort of bring things back and to not go right off on a tangent there, which I was about to, I want to look at the week ahead. I want to look at where Bitcoin currently is. I'm a little bit uncertain on the short-term direction. I'm very polarized in regards to, do we have to sell off a little bit more where Bitcoin currently is? And that means the crypto space. You know, I'm a little bit worried about, obviously, Richard Hart and Hex had a lawsuit brought against them. I'm a little bit worried about more of those on the horizon and the damaging effect that might have on the space. You know, I can't see Gary Gensler and the SEC stopping there. They've accused a number of cryptocurrencies as being securities in the Coinbase and Binance lawsuit. However, Coinbase did recently make a filing to dismiss the SEC's actions, and they actually mentioned Cardano and Dash, which I found very interesting, and why they believe they're not securities. But to bring things back to where I started off at the beginning, and to stop jumping around like we're very good at on this channel, the future for blockchain is a future that is very similar to any technological revolution that came before it. It is going to change and implement itself into day-to-day life, just like others have previously. Okay, so right now we're communicating over the internet on a PC, two technological revolutions right there. I'm using a microphone, another revolution. And of course, it's using electricity, which is another revolution. You're going to have blockchain interwoven into everything: identities, finance, everything. Even electrical companies are probably going to use it for proof of use and all kinds of things. So be happy that you're here. You're looking a gift horse in the mouth if you're worried about short-term sort of price action. It's absolutely my belief that if you're accumulating cryptos at this point, right, and bearing in mind we weren't accumulating them in 2022, we very much got that bear market very right. We got back in January, and we think you're at a great point. Yes, you could see further downside and chop from here, but in a kind of longer term time frame, you're setting yourself up, and this is not financial advice for greatness, and certainly we've taken that step, if you will. So let's take a look before we move on to the week ahead, and then we're going to get into a number of really interesting things. We're going to be talking about Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway that sit on a cash hoard. Why is he doing that? Well, he's obviously expecting downside. But let's start things off with the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory. So Bitcoin has really just moved in a 4-year cycle, and the crypto market. And the reason it's done this is, of course, because of the halvening. The halvening cuts the supply of Bitcoin in half, and the price has to adjust. Miners, by the way, are the largest sellers, net sellers of Bitcoin in the entire they're the biggest sell pressure that there is. We're going to do a whole video on that. But are we just following this 4-year cycle theory? And being round about 26 days out, it's very interesting to me that if you look at 26 days out of the halving prior, you kind of have a run up like we've seen. And then from 26 days out, you almost kind of slump and go down in 2020's case, sideways in 2016's case, or have a slight downside and then start to rally up in 2012's case. So again, this is another polarizing thing. Even though we think Bitcoin looks great, we're a little bit worried about the short term. But that isn't with high enough conviction for me to sell any spot, which is the really interesting thing. You know, I'm not necessarily that worried about any short-term downside. In fact, for me and my group, it will be a buying opportunity, which is something that we absolutely, you know, are happy to bring on. So very interesting. A little bit of a look from a 4-year cycle theory perspective and what it does typically. And you can come and look this up yourself. Go to the Brave New Liquid Coin Index. Would you guys like a tutorial on how to use TradingView? I think it'd be very useful for people that are new to the markets to get familiar with charts. The charts are the truth. Ultimately, charts are people's participation with their own money, and you know, people care about money a lot more than they do other things. So maybe we'll do that. But to move on to Bitcoin now, you know, we've got this 30K level that's proven a worthy adversary. We're selling off from it. We've got lots of targets to the upside. We've got general market structure. You got Dow theory in here. You know, a lot of things are on our kind of side in regards to being bulls, and this was a truly magnificent call that we made. But this level will get taken. The real question in the short term is, do we have to sell off a little bit more? You're doing the same thing that you did here and here before you see that upside. So is that a visit to the sort of 27, 28K range before you sort of use it as a springboard, and maybe there's some news that comes on the back end of that, whether it be the ETF or whatever it is. You know, it's working this out that's got me a little bit puzzled, because there's lots of polars. You're going to have an event this week, of course, in the CPI that's going to be interesting. We're going to look at that in just a second. So I'm still pretty uncertain about the short term. Week, 2 weeks, maybe the month of August. But I do think, you know, you by the end of the year, Bitcoin's going to be significantly higher than it is here. It's just the route you take to get there. And once you flip 30K, you get this absolute wall of FOMO that will run into this market, and you'll be up in these levels before you know it, which subsequently coincide with the targets that we have from technical structures. Very interesting, everything that's going on. Somebody mentioned maybe, why don't I try and draw a bearish pattern here? If you wanted to, could be looking at some sort of a wedge-like structure, perhaps. You know, and then of course you'd look for some sort of a break of this. It's not really a tidy falling wedge. I like the grind line. That would maybe be a kind of bearish sign if you did something like this. And then, of course, you lose 25K. This is all invalidated, and then we need to go back to the drawing board. So there is, of course, there's always a bearish route for the markets. It's just not one that we favor. And we think that crypto's done well. It's done pretty poorly, actually, in comparison with other asset classes out there, like the stock market, which we've kind of looked at to say, this is likely to get a bit of a pullback. It's done exactly what we set out for it in regards to the direction that we've thought it would take. Of course, Apple, majorly hit. This is going to lean on the cryptocurrency market. And the cryptocurrency market didn't do too well off the back end of that non-farm payroll, which came out weak. The thing is with the dollar now is it's again in no man's land for me. It's in a kind of point of nowhere. You know, we're not at sort of resistance and we're not at support. So I'm kind of like, And with the week ahead, which we'll prepare you for now, you've got the US CPI on Thursday, which is going to be market moving. You've got US PPIs as well, and then you've got UK GDPs, which will, of course, all affect the dollar mainly, and thus lean on the markets. You know, when you're looking at charts, you're looking at 1/2 Bitcoin, 1/2 dollar, a Bitcoin against the dollar. So it's going to be interesting. So this when we have said, actually looking at some commodities, that inflation it's had a great run to the downside. This is wheat. You've got things like orange juice and olive oil that are like new all-time highs, which is interesting. I'm not sure about natural gas. Teaching stage analysis at the moment in the Discord, well worth getting into and watching. I wouldn't even say this is a confirmed stage 1 yet. I'd say this is still stage 4. And we're looking for stage 1 and then stage 2 just for this to really pop its head back up. It's good to have anchor points in the markets. Can you say that that is it's a potential stage 1 going into stage 2 on natural gas? Lots going on, and the inflation expectations actually are higher than the previous one, and we've had a continuous decline, albeit a small one, with inflation and CPI for a while now, for a year, I think, plus. So how's the market going to react with perhaps a higher inflationary measure? This is the polarizing thing here, but for me, in regards to what we're seeing. So short term, a little bit unsure. And if I'm unsure about something, the best thing for me to do is not play, and just see what happens. But of course, you guys know we're very much back in the markets and looking for opportunities as they come. So this is going to be interesting. Then moving on to the next rate hike. Currently, the probabilities are that they're going to keep rates where they are. Although I think you had Fed's Waller come out today or yesterday and actually say that he thinks we're going to need more hikes. It's going to lean on inflation, CPI really, and of course the jobs number, which came out a little bit weak, which saw the dollar sell off, but didn't really see Bitcoin appreciate on the back end of it. I'm very polarized, guys, short term. I wish I could sit here and say with certainty, like we've been very certain on this kind of movement here for Bitcoin, that I'm cautious. 30k is such a big number that what I'm confident on is that eventually it gets taken. The direction to taking that, I think, is going to be interesting. So that's another kind of boring macro LARPy stuff. Let's get on to some interesting stuff. Interesting. Valkyrie just filed a 497 that they plan to convert BTF into a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF on October the 3rd, which would be 2 weeks ahead of the other 13 filers' scheduled launch. We'll see if this files. Something similar happened back in the day with MG, which I think is a Mary Jane company, if I can say that. The first pot ETF. And actually, you'll see the interesting similarities there, which is it's very interesting. This was an interesting tweet. So Valkyrie are essentially trying to jump the queue. And here's 14. Well, kind of Valkyrie looking to convert BTFT into a Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. So futures have been approved, which is a whole kind of comical thing about spot ETF, because they've reviewed the futures ETF. They've even reviewed leverage futures ETFs for Bitcoin. Not Ethereum, I don't think yet. Perhaps they have. In fact, they may have, but they've not approved a spot one. This could be a clever attempt to jump the line because they simply changing strategy of existing funds versus launching a new one. But I think they probably have to wait till October like everyone else. So it's expected that in October, you're going to get final decisions on the ETFs. And then going back to the Bitcoin, sort of tying this all the way back round, does that then completely like coincide with a Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory where you have this sideways chop and then boom, going into the halvening, you've all of a sudden got Bitcoin ETFs approved, it explodes, and then the real thing continues. It's amazing how much we followed the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory, despite all the macro kind of things going on. And the interesting thing is, we actually don't expect what everyone's been calling for a while now. We've said, no, you're wrong. We think you're wrong on the timing. 2008 to repeat until we're in kind of 2006, end of 2006, moving forwards. We've also got elections. There's so much going on that's very hard to sort of tie all together, but we're getting quite a good picture here of what we think is to come, and we think you're going to have a great time over the next 12, potentially 24 months into a 2008-like crash that could potentially be the great financial reset. We'll see. We'll see how bad it is, and we'll see what the bond market does. Of course, you've got Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, ended QT with $147 billion in cash. That's the equivalent of... they're up significantly, which is interesting. Warren Buffett is a great investor, but he's the most simple investor that there is. And actually, if you look at it might have been City did a great report on the best performing retail individuals that they had. And what they found was a lot of them were dead. And that's why they did so well, because their accounts never closed. They just held, and that was it. And the ones that just held over the longest period of time did the best. And that's kind of a Warren Buffett strategy. But Warren Buffett is also pretty heavy in equities. You can see Apple is his largest holding, then Bank of America. Interesting. American Express, Coca-Cola, and Chevron. So he is still predominantly in equities, but has a large cash reserve also. So again, polarizing. And that's the theme that I'm seeing right now in crypto. It's very polarizing. We're not bears by any stretch of the imagination, but short term, I don't know. And then let's just tie the Bollinger Bands in here to just really give everyone a kind of a lump of confusion in regards to the fact that these Bollinger Bands are extremely tight. Every time your Bollinger Bands constrict and volatility restricts, you get a break out of it. And anybody that's familiar with trading will know that this is the case, not just based on Bollinger Bands, but based on volatility, based on a number of things. You're going to get a big move here. The question is what way? Is there the SEC involved in that? Who knows? But the joyous thing is, like we were showing people yesterday, is the largest institutions in the world are long crypto exposure stocks, whether it be MicroStrategy, whether it be Coinbase, whether it be Hut 8, whatever it may be, Block Inc. And take for that what you will. So we'll see. I'd like it to be up, and I think eventually it will be. But you're going to get a big move, and just be very careful. I wouldn't recommend trading with any leverage. I don't think retail should be trading with leverage at all, really, to be quite honest, unless it's a very small amount and you actually know what you're doing. And it's a real pet peeve of mine to see people trading with 80, 90x leverage. I just think it's nothing short of insanity. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. If you enjoyed the content, like, always appreciate it as a comment. Watch out for a big week ahead. We'll keep you up to date on this channel, and see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next.